Hello, and welcome to Reimagining Love. I'm Dr. Alexandra Solomon. I have been studying relationships for over 20 years as a couples therapist, a professor, an award-winning author, and as a wife, mother, daughter, sister, and friend. Now, I'm inviting you into this space each week as I dig into some of the toughest and most fascinating relational dilemmas of our time. If you want to discover how to create vibrant and loving relationships in your own life, you have come to the right place. This is Reimagining Love. Hey, welcome back to Reimagining Love. Okay, you're going to hear in my voice that I am battling some kind of something. I'm scratchy and a little raspy, but I am here for our solo episode. We are picking up our series, which is all about family of origin roles. Last week, we unpacked the perfect one, and I hope that episode was helpful to everybody who is a perfect one listener out there, and for folks who are loving a perfect one. And that introductory episode of the series came out a few weeks ago. And so if you haven't had a chance to listen to that one, I've got the introductory episode linked in the show notes, the perfect one episode linked in the show notes. So if you already know your family of origin role, that means that you are ready to dive in with me today as we explore the second of our 6 roles that appear in my framework. Today, we're putting the spotlight on the easy one. And we know that the easy one doesn't love the spotlight. So this in and of itself is a healing practice for the easy one to let themselves be the center of attention today. So this is all about getting to know yourself if you are listening as an easy one. But it's also, if you are somebody who loves an easy one, it's going to be helpful for you because it's going to help you understand them more deeply and connect with them deeply and to kind of challenge them a little bit to stop being so darn accommodating. Also, as always, feel free to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and let us know what you think so far of this series. It's only going to take you a few moments, and it's a wonderful way for you to help me continue to create content that feels supportive and helpful. It's a great way to help new people find reimagining love. All right, so we're going to do what we did last week. We're going to look at the origin story of the easy one. We'll look at the cultural factors that might create and reinforce that easy one role. We're going to look at the impact of being an easy one on friendships, on work relationships, on intimate partnerships. And then we're going to focus on some interventions and strategies, not to fix you because you're broken, but rather to free you from patterns of accommodation and silence so that you can feel more authentic in your relationships. Quick reminder as we get started here that I'm going to be sharing a worksheet with tailored journaling prompts and practices for all of the roles. So if you want to receive that worksheet later on this winter, make sure that you're signed up for my newsletter, which you can find a link for in the show notes, or you can visit dralexandrasolomon.com/subscribe to get yourself added to that list. All right, if you've already taken the Family of Origin Roles quiz, which is BTW, linked in the show notes, if you already know you're an easy one, then you probably already have a sense of why that role suits you. But here are some check-ins, some telltale signs that you may be an easy one. First, you were used to existing in the background or going with the flow while other members of your family took up more space or were noisier or were struggling in some kind of a way. Maybe you didn't feel like the main character in your family. Maybe when things got tense at home, you tried to make things easy on the adults by being amenable or by ignoring your needs. Looking at how you are today, you are perhaps a certified people pleaser, and you might be somebody who avoids confrontation. You might hate rocking the boat. You might hate speaking up when something doesn't sit well with you. You may be an easy one if you easily and readily acclimate to different social situations and dynamics because of your agreeability. You may sometimes struggle to get in touch with your own opinions and your own needs or to stand your ground. Finally, for each of these roles, I am assigning a bumper sticker or a catchphrase. So for the easy one, the motto or the core belief is this: I am loved to the degree that I am accommodating. Okay, I also want to share some examples of the easy one in pop culture. Again, I love how art and media give us a chance to see ourselves in characters on the screen. My team and I are having so much fun brainstorming the fictional representations that we think capture each of these roles. So for the easy one, we thought about Luke Dunphy from The Modern Family and how he kind of floats along in this family of strong opinions and big personalities. Kevin McAllister from Home Alone, who is pretty chronically ignored by his adults and siblings, only getting attention when he causes a scene. In fact, as is the premise of the movie, he is such an easy one that he was accidentally left at home by his family when they travel overseas. I thought about Yellowstone's Casey Dutton, who's played by Luke Grimes, who kind of like does what's expected of him to do without raising much of a fuss. Dustin from Stranger Things. And last week we talked about Hermione as a perfect one. Well, back to the Harry Potter series, we'll cite Ron Weasley as an easy one. Somebody on my team suggested Lexi from Euphoria. Somebody else suggested Sugar from The Bear. Oh, and my husband and my kids rolled up with these examples. Steph, played by Candace Cameron in the sitcom Full House. Peter from the Brady Bunch, and Teddy Duncan from the Disney Channel's Good Luck Charlie. So by the end of the episode, you may have thought of some fictional examples of your own. Shoot me a DM or send me an email and let me know, and I will add them to our growing list of characters who play these various family of origin roles. One note I think is telling is I don't think there's a single character I just mentioned who is the oldest child. And birth order is a pretty fascinating branch in the field of psychology. Birth order has been found to have a pretty significant impact on personality and temperament. And in my experience, easy ones tend to be middle children or youngest children. Definitely more so than oldest ones. Oldest ones skew towards being perfect ones. And we may see some oldest one tendencies as we go along here and look at the other roles in future episodes. So we've been talking about the utility of this family of origin roles framework in that it helps us have a way to connect then and now, how the past impacts your current present day relationship dynamics. We've been talking about how systems create homeostasis and safety and stability by any means necessary, and that families are a system. So your family system cast you into a role, and you took this role on because safety is so primary to all of us throughout our lives. This is the reason we get put into boxes. And unfortunately, these boxes become limiting when we carry them with us into our adult lives. When we carry this belief that I have to be this way in order to be loved, in order to be connected, in order to belong, that is exhausting and it's limiting. So, what are the forces that might have contributed to you being cast as the easy one? How did you come to be this way? Well, I would posit that underneath your tendency to accommodate, to make yourself palatable, was a fear of being shamed, of being called out, of being judged. There likely was this knot of feelings that you experienced when you were little: fear, shame, sadness. And you therefore learned how to avoid that yucky knot of feelings with coping mechanisms that were all about placating and accommodating and blending into the wallpaper and not rocking the boat. Reminder that when we talk about coping strategies, We're talking about behaviors that fall into 4 buckets: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And for the easy one, the primary coping strategies are fawn, appease and comply, and flight, retreat, avoid, disappear, shut down. I'm guessing that those are sounding familiar to you. What I want to say is that developing these coping mechanisms of fawning and fleeing was smart. That was smart of you to do. Those were your survival strategies. Those were adaptive in a context where self expression was risky, where you faced emotional risk in self expressing. So that was smart for you to do. We just got to now figure out how to help you move into something that is more authentic and aligned and nuanced than just go along to get along. So let's be a little more specific. What might have been going on in your family of origin that led you to feel afraid of being a problem, of being perceived as a problem, of being perceived as difficult? Although there are probably as many possibilities as there are family systems, let me talk you through 7. And you see which of them land for you, which of them maybe help you connect some dots in your own family history. 1, your parents were critical. So you learned it was safer to fly beneath the radar, to go unnoticed, and to not stand out. Standing out was dangerous. Blending in was safer. Maybe you had the experience of making a fuss and getting shut down, or punished, or criticized, or judged for expressing what you needed. And that experience stayed with you. So you deflated yourself. You learned to go along to get along. Or maybe you watch somebody else in the system get in trouble or make a fuss and you learned by observation. 2, your parents or siblings were fighting a lot and it was safer to escape and make yourself invisible. One of the ways somebody shows up as an easy one is they kind of become like this lost child. There's so much chaos in a family that the easy one feels ignored, left behind, unnoticed because they're not the squeaky wheel. There's just too much chaos for them to get attention. So they hide out or retreat from what feels like an unpredictable situation. Number 3, your parents could not give you what you needed physically or emotionally. So you learned to stop asking. If the big people were busy or distracted or wrapped up in their own pain, there simply wasn't capacity for them to focus on your needs. So you made yourself as easy as possible in an attempt to stop the hurt of being ignored. 4, one of your siblings was the struggling one, a role we're going to explore later on in the series. So you became an easy one in an attempt to take the pressure off of parents who were already feeling overwhelmed by this quote unquote difficult child. So you balanced the difficult by being the easy. Number 5, one of your siblings was a perfect one, which is the role we explored in last week's episode. So you saw that they were, getting all the gold stars and accolades. You figured you couldn't compete. So you just gave your sibling, your perfect one sibling, the spotlight. It's what they wanted after all. Number 6, one or both of your parents are themselves easy ones. So this behavior was straight up modeled for you. You learn by observation that the best and most appropriate way of being is to blend in and not ask for much. Your parents taught you through modeling to pipe down and make sure that everybody around you is comfortable. Number 7, you grew up in a family in which there was conflict about chores or making plans or whatever the heck. So saying, I'm fine with anything, and shrugging your shoulders was your attempt to create harmony. You sort of were like tofu. You just sort of absorbed the flavors of the dish. You became kind of like the neutral vote because everybody else was expressing strong opinions. Because we are socialized within our families as well as within larger cultural systems, let's make sure that we briefly widen out our lens and look at how socialization may have dovetailed with and amplified your family role as the easy one. I'm going to start with gender. For girls and women who identify as easy ones, there is pressure from both gender socialization and family of origin dynamics to be good and nice and accommodating. So someone who's socialized in the feminine absorbs so many messages that she shouldn't take up too much space. And if she's also an easy one in her family, that messaging is going to be all the more amplified. She laughs at everyone's jokes. She makes sure that others feel validated and are comfy, even at the expense of her own comfort. She takes the smallest helpings of food. She apologizes. She shrinks. She knows that standing her ground and finding her voice are just not safe options. Accommodation equals safety. More generally, if you tend toward being an easy one and you occupy one or more marginalized identities, then part of your easy oneness likely comes from your socialization in that marginalized identity. So women, queer folks, BIPOC folks, and other marginalized groups already receive so much messaging that they shouldn't take up very much space, that they should observe and accommodate those with power and make sure they don't step out of line or be inconvenient in any kind of way. So here again, cultural rules are reinforcing and cementing that family role. When I think about boys and men who identify as easy ones, I think about the work of Dr. Robert Glover on what he calls nice guy syndrome, which has been amplified by my friend Connor Beaton. Nice guy syndrome, Dr. Glover argues, emerges when boys haven't had the privilege of growing up with a secure and safe male role model to look up to. And they can end up feeling confused about what to do with their own strong feelings. And rather than turning anger into healthy assertiveness, like, hey, wait a minute, let's slow down here. This is not going to work for me, they end up suppressing their frustrations and instead get really invested in acting nice and being a nice guy. And the problem with suppressing so-called negative feelings for the sake of being a nice guy is that we can't do selective suppression of our emotions. So when we suppress appropriate anger because it feels too scary or too threatening, that means we also suppress enthusiasm and passion and vitality and joy. And I think, frankly, we're in an awfully confusing cultural moment right now in which a lot of boys and men are confused about the difference between assertiveness and aggression, between actual strength and quote unquote toxic masculinity, between healthy expression of needs and domination. So I think that there's that all of that cultural confusion and paradox and mixed messaging can lead men who already have a tendency to be an easy one to be that much more self-abandoning and go along to get along. And the price they pay then is feeling perhaps a bit purposeless, a bit driftless, not feeling particularly excited about or passionate about much of anything in their lives. By the way, I linked in the show notes a conversation between Dr. Robert Glover and Connor Beaton from 2017. Okay, well, now we've explored the easy one's origin story. Let's fast forward and come back to the present moment and look at the easy one in context in their relationships, at work, in friendships, and in romantic partnership. At work, if you have a tendency towards being an easy one, you are probably rewarded for your adaptability and for being a team player. Your organization can put you anywhere, and that's great. You're seen as somebody who can figure stuff out. They can give you any task and you're going to figure it out. It's a valuable quality. You probably say yes to new stuff. You probably don't ask a lot of questions. You certainly don't make a fuss. You're not a squeaky wheel. You're not a pain in anybody's butt. But I want to point out two things. Number one, you're probably more likely than other people to experience imposter syndrome. Why? Well, you're adaptable. You're up for anything. You're there to meet the system's needs, regardless of how well prepared you are to do so. So you may let yourself be put into a position in your organization that you are not trained for or that you are not ready for. And then, understandably, you end up feeling like a fraud. You end up feeling like an imposter. In this situation, I want you to be careful not to personalize something that's actually systemic. You said yes to something the system wanted you to do that you weren't ready for because you're an easy one. And then you end up with a raging case of imposter syndrome. Just be a little suspicious there. You're not an imposter. You've been agreeable, right? You're the one walking around with the imposter syndrome, but you have that feeling because you have agreed to let yourself be in the service of the system. The second thing I want to point out is as an easy one, you may also struggle to find your voice at work, even when you're being asked to weigh in on something or speak up about something. So I want you to be looking for opportunities to practice flexing that muscle. And it may be easier to speak up in a structured environment like an annual review. Structure tends to make hard things feel a little bit easier. And so in an annual review, that's the time to give and receive feedback. So, especially for you as an easy one, before you go into that review, I want you really to think of one thing to flag and one thing to ask for. It's going to be easier for you to advocate for yourself in that more structured setting that is designed for feedback versus coming up with something on the spot, speaking up, in the ordinary flow of an open meeting. Let's move on to friendship. What about easy ones in friendship? Well, first of all, who would not want you as a friend? You go with the flow and you're flexible and you're probably amazing at making people feel comfortable and at ease in your presence. It's possible, however, that some of your friends might not feel like they know you particularly well or deeply because you're somewhat of a relational chameleon. Do your friends know your opinions? Do they know your favorite and least favorite things? Do they know your pet peeves? As an easy one, you might need to work on receiving in your friendships, whether that's compliments or gifts or favors. As an easy one, you're likely to be averse about being needy. So when your friend offers to help you, you're outside of your comfort zone. But what I want you to remember is that research shows that being a helper is actually good for our mental health. It's called a helper's high. Being helpful releases feel good chemicals in your brain. In fact, the Dalai Lama one time joked about selfish altruism. So think about it that way. When you let your friend take care of you, show up for you, you're actually doing that friend a favor by letting them be helpful. You're giving them the chance to experience that helper's high. So if you can, if you can reframe it for yourself that way, it might help you ease into being a little bit needy in your friendship and trusting that that's how people are going to feel closer to you. Like they know you better and like there's more, kind of trust and depth in the friendship. Let's move on to intimate relationships. And I want to start by talking a little bit about the easy one in their dating relationships. When it comes to the early days of an intimate relationship, I think that the easy one has some things to look out for. In dating, you might feel quite swept off your feet by somebody who is clear that they like you. Why? Well, because A, that other person initiating and taking the lead keeps you out of the uncomfortable spot of needing to pursue or declare, or approach. Pursuing is anxiety provoking, certainly for all of us to some extent. But as an easy one, pursuing likely feels especially risky and especially vulnerable. And B, the other reason that you may be swept off your feet by somebody who's clear that they like you is that if they're taking the lead, you're going to have to rock the boat in order to slow things down. And you don't like rocking the boat. So you might really just like get swept up in the momentum of that early relationship. And it means that early in a relationship, if you're being pursued, because of your tendency to follow someone else's lead and accommodate, you might find yourself in a relationship that is getting pretty serious pretty quickly. Now, that is not necessarily a bad thing, but I definitely want you to keep turning your attention inward and to keep checking in with yourself. The question I want you to keep asking yourself is, do I like this person? Do I like this person because of reasons that I can come up with? Or is the primary reason that I like this person because they like me, right? Of course, it feels good to be liked. But if you can't actually identify things that you like about them, it is worth slowing down, speaking up, making a little bit of a fuss, and just making sure that you have your feet underneath you enough that you know you're choosing this relationship rather than just choosing to go with the flow because that feels easier. In each of these episodes, I'm going to explore what happens when two people in the same role get together romantically. So here we're talking about two easy ones, which I think is kind of an interesting case. Two easy ones who find their way to each other may do a really good job of growing the friendship part of their relationship because they each want to make sure the other person is comfortable and the other person is happy. So these two together are probably awesome at creating a lot of coziness and a lot of safety between the two of them. John Gottman, one of my favorite researchers to cite, as you know, talks about how there are three types of happy couples. His research has found this. Three different types of happy couples: the volatile couples, the validating couples, and the avoidant couples. So the volatile couples are the couples who fight hard and make up hard. They have high relationship satisfaction because there are guardrails in their conflict. There are lines that don't get crossed, but there's a lot of heat and a lot of emotion. Volatile couples are not couples made up of easy ones. Okay. Second type of happy couple are the validating couples. These couples focus on active listening and checking in and processing, and they have high relationship satisfaction as well. The third type of happy couple that Gottman's research found are the avoidant couples. These couples have a high priority on keeping the peace. There's not a lot of strong preferences expressed. There's not a lot of high highs, not a lot of low lows. And they have high relationship satisfaction because things are peaceful. So I think that two easy ones who find their way to each other are likely to fall into that avoidant couple category. And remember, they're happy together. This is a lovely way to make a relationship. There's not a lot of conflict. There are not a lot of strong opinions expressed. There are not a lot of power struggles. There's a tendency towards accommodation and unity and harmony, and that is lovely. But a reminder that every way of being in a relationship has a sort of shadowy side effect. And so for our double easy couple, it might be somewhat harder for them to tap into erotic energy because erotic energy tends to rely a little bit more on polarity and charge and spark. So what this double easy couple gets in coziness, they may struggle with in electricity, right? Expressing desire is vulnerable. So with easy ones paired together, there might just not be quite as much desire expressed. So easy one couples may need to be a bit more intentional, especially around their erotic lives. They may also have a little bit of a challenge around differentiation. Differentiation is I can stand on my own 2 feet and feel connected to you. I am separate from you and feeling close to you. I think for easy ones, there's a fear of being displeasing, a fear of loss of connection. They might sacrifice expressing what they want because they're focused on making sure the other guy is happy. So just some things to look out for. So let's talk about treatment, about interventions, about where we go from here and how to help that easy one liberate themselves a bit from some of the confines of being so darn pleasing. We're talking here about how the easy one can de-roll themselves a little bit, how they can put that old way of being into retirement, how to step out of the sidelines and get on the field, so to speak. Our theme here is authenticity. So from accommodation to authenticity. And I want to be clear, I am not suggesting that easy ones are fake or phonies. What I'm saying though is that easy ones are so adaptable and so amenable that they risk losing sight of what feels good and real and true for them. But I want to take a little bit of time and talk about authenticity. If you've been a listener for a while, you know that I believe the self is inherently relational. We are made and remade again and again in our relationships. So the self isn't fixed. The self is dynamic. And we come to know ourselves in the context of our relationships. All of that leads us to need to reimagine the very notion of what authenticity means. I think of authenticity as an iterative practice, not a destination. It's a way of showing up in relationships, not a personality trait. So to me, authenticity is not like introversion or extroversion. It's more like a practice. It's a skill. Authenticity is a way of being. Authenticity is a commitment to checking again and again for any gaps that exist between how our insides are feeling and what our outsides are showing. Authenticity is this process of learning how to recognize friction between what we're saying and how we're feeling, and then committing ourselves to course correction, noticing we've gotten off track and bringing ourselves back to something that feels more aligned. Because we are infinitely relational, we are forever scanning the scene to figure out who we need to be in order to be liked, to win favor, to stay safe, to stay within the cultural norms of how we're expected to behave. And this scanning is ingrained. It so often happens outside our conscious awareness. And that is true for all of us, even more so for our easy ones. And so healing for our easy ones is not about like declaring, I'm going to be authentic from here on out. I think that's way too much pressure, way too much to expect around shedding years of coping and socialization. Rather, healing is about learning to notice what misalignment feels like inside of your body. What are your internal tells that let you know there's a breach between how you're feeling, what you're needing, and what you're showing or what you're asking for? For me, inauthenticity feels like a little twist inside of my gut, and or inauthenticity feels to me like I'm getting like a little bit floaty, like I'm not connected inside of my body. I'm not connected to my breath. I'm not connected to my voice. So I wonder, what does that disconnect feel like for you inside of your body? And I also want to note here that to me, the biggest problem with inauthenticity is not what it does to your relationship with other people, but rather what it does to your relationship with yourself. When you shut down your perspective to be pleasing, you are sending yourself the message that you are not right as you are. You are not acceptable and lovable and knowable as you are. So I worry less about how your struggle with authenticity hurts the other person. And I worry more about the damage that that struggle does to you, to your insides, how it really is an abandonment of self. So let's get specific. Our goal is to help the easy one be more authentic in their relationships, right? So I'm going to offer some strategies to the easy one themselves. Then I'm going to offer some strategies to partners of easy ones. And then I'm going to offer some strategies for couples. Easy one, you're up first. Let's discuss some practices just for you, designed to liberate you from this lifetime of accommodation. I want to start with a little diagnostic check in. Do you notice what you want, but push it down to make others comfortable? Or do you really not even feel your leans, your preferences, your desires? In other words, is your work to liberate your voice or to reclaim your voice? Do you need to speak up or do you need to reconnect? If you know what you want, but find yourself afraid to ask, you're going to focus more on practices that help you feel permission to speak up and practices that involve you affirming the shit out of yourself when you do speak up, regardless of the outcome, regardless of how anybody else responds when you speak up. If you are disconnected and don't even really know what you want, you're going to focus more on embodiment, on getting back in touch with your body, noticing what a yes feels like inside of you, noticing what a no feels like inside of you, noticing and amplifying even the tiniest bit of preference and building on that again and again and again, like a little training program. So I'm going to share with you now 6 practices that you can start today to shed the easy one role and to move into a more authentic way of being. Okay, strategy number 1. You know I love rewinding the tape to a time before you lost your voice, before you lost touch with your authentic self. So this first practice is about connecting with little you. What did you used to love when you were a child? What activities did you gravitate toward? What did you enjoy reading? What colors appealed to you? What clothes did you love to wear? What foods did you love to eat? What settings and scenes brought you joy? As you connect yourself to the preferences and desires and passions of little you, your next step then is to explore what are the grown up versions of those loves and how might you bring some of those into your life today. Strategy number 2, journaling prompts. I love journaling prompts. So here are a few for you. If you're an easy one, I'm imagining you opening up your journal and just kind of like riffing off of each of these. I can take up more space today by ... It is helpful to my loved ones when I express my opinions because ... The price I pay for being the easy one is ... Number 3 is a variation on the theme of journaling, which is a space journal. Rather than keeping a gratitude journal, you probably have heard of a gratitude journal. What I'm proposing to you is that you start to keep a space journal. At the end of the day, every day, I want you to write down 2 or 3 things that you did that day to take up space, to make a request, to express an opinion, to disagree, or to state a preference. See what happens as you notice and challenge yourself to just be a little, a little less agreeable to take up a little more space. That's your space journal. Practice number 4, ask for help with a task. Practice number 5, let a server know that they got your order wrong or that you would like something to be modified in your order. Think about how when you're out in the world, you can ask for things to be a bit more to your liking. Number 6, make a small request of somebody in your life. Maybe it's you ask your partner for more snuggles. Maybe you ask for help cleaning the house. No apologies, just thank yous. All right, partner of the easy one, you are up next. It might feel really nice early on in your relationship with the easy one to have somebody in your life who is so accommodating. But what I want to preview for you is that there's a long-term price to be paid. The long-term price is that this easy one partner runs the risk of feeling resentful, of feeling flattened out, of feeling kind of purposeless. And you, in fact, have the privilege and the honor, and dare I say, the responsibility to love your easy one in such a way that they can take the risk to step into authenticity. They've spent a lifetime fading back and shrugging their shoulders and saying it's fine and saying whatever you want. But when that's their MO, you are not getting their fullest self, are you? So you are tasked with co-creating a relational ecosystem that welcomes your easy one's truth. A relational ecosystem that allows your easy one to notice a preference or a lean or a need bubbling up inside of them so they can bring it to you. Not in an angry way, not in a blaming way, not in a demanding or controlling way, but in a way that says, hey, wait a minute, let's factor me in too. So here are 5 strategies that you can practice today to help your easy one be less pleasy and more real. Number 1, slow yourself down enough that you can pause and check in with your easy one to make sure their yes is really a yes rather than just the opinion that they think is the quickest route to peace. This might sound like you saying, well, we could do it that way, but let me give you a few minutes so you can check in with yourself and see how this really sits with you. Number 2, make it safe to disappoint you. If you have a tendency to pout or shut down or grumble when things don't go your way, you are likely reinforcing your easy one's people-pleasing tendency. So when something does not go your way, I want you to take a breath and I want you to keep the big picture in mind. If you wanted path X and you guys end up on path Y, I want you to be really careful not to point out the hiccups that happen on path Y, right? Because when you do that, you're just reinforcing the easy ones, self-silencing stuff that really is not good for your relationship. So the second strategy is about making it safe to disappoint you. Number 3, when your easy one partner asks something of you, understand this is a big deal. This is a fork in the road moment. And if you can accommodate them and give them what they've asked for, you are going to reinforce for your easy one that it is safe here with you to ask for what they need. And when you give your easy one what they want or need, remind yourself that you are doing your part to co-create an atmosphere of authenticity. It is so healing for your easy one to be able to practice this skill of self-advocacy with you. And like I said before, it is so much better for you in the long run to be partnered with somebody who's a force to be reckoned with rather than an agreeable shell of a person. Which leads me to number 4. When your partner says no to you, I want you to feel so proud that you have made it safe for them to decline something. It's huge. So rather than feeling ashamed about whatever you asked for, or rather than feeling angry that you're not going to get the thing you wanted, just be proud of yourself that your easy one feels comfortable enough to push back. That's so cool. Number 5, when your partner disagrees with you, I'm asking you to resist the urge to get into a debate. So rather than debating, here's what you can do instead. You can ask these 2 questions. Question 1, how is our problem solving actually enhanced by having both of these perspectives, your perspective and my perspective? Question number 2, what is our path forward that honors both of our perspectives, mine and yours? All right, let's move on now to our couple strategies. So we know that structure makes scary things feel safer. So these strategies are all things that the 2 of you can do together as a couple to help the easy one step forward a little bit, to help the easy one feel more at ease, speaking up, being in the spotlight, receiving. So these are strategies to add some more scaffolding to that process. The first one is schedule boss days. When there's an easy one in a relationship, you can get into these endless loops of, what should we eat tonight? I don't care. What do you want to do this afternoon? Whatever. And certainly, if you are both easy ones, this is even more so the case. So, schedule boss days a couple of times a week. The boss makes all the decisions that day: what to eat for dinner, where to run errands, what show to watch, and see what it's like to be in both of those roles, the boss and the, the one who has to go along with whatever the boss wants. Make it playful, make it fun, make it an experiment just to kind of shake up and get you guys out of that. What do you want to do? Doesn't matter. Okay, moving on. Heads up that the rest of the strategies here that I have for couples, they're all sexual in nature. I didn't go into this easy one episode planning to focus on couple-based healing strategies that are sexual in nature. But here we are, and I think actually it makes sense. Our easy one is comfortable fading back, and we want our easy one to step forward, to be a little more selfish. And sex gives us so many chances to explore taking up a little bit more space. We know that the realm of the erotic provides us with a powerful arena for healing. And we know that because sex is all about communication and connection, at least good sex is all about communication and connection, when we are intentional about our sex lives, it pays off in other realms of our relationship as well. So I have organized these next strategies from, call it, least erotically risky to most erotically risky. So just see where you're at, where your partner's at, what each of you might be up for, and modify as you see fit. There are no rights and no wrongs. These are just chances for you to try some new ways to be with each other. Okay, so you could explore turn taking in the bedroom with the 3-minute game by Betty Martin. I love this exercise. I think it's so creative and so simple and so impactful. You know, when it comes to sexual intimacy, we tend to prioritize mutual stuff, like those acts where both people are giving and receiving pleasure at the same time. So when you play the 3-minute game, you're really like slowing things down and breaking things up a little bit. So in the 3-minute game, you have a chance to play with 4 different vibes. I tell you how I want to touch you. I tell you how I want you to touch me. You tell me how you want me to touch you. You tell me how you want to touch me. So I have linked Betty Martin's website where there's a handout and some videos that teach you how to play. And I for sure want your feedback if and when you do this. I think it's such a neat exercise. All right, the next one is to explore turn taking in the bedroom with sensate focus. Sensate focus is a wonderful, powerful, tried and true activity for couples. It's used in nearly every sex therapy case ever for all different kinds of sexual problems and challenges that couples are facing. And here I'm stretching us to bring sensate focus into the healing of all the patterns that come up when there's an easy one or two easy ones in a relationship together. So in the show notes, you're going to find an article describing sensate focus. But really what I want you to do is to grab a copy of the book called Desire by Dr. Jennifer Venzel and Dr. Lauren Fogel Mercy. These two were guests on Reimagining Love, and they wrote this book, Desire, and they offer the best description of sensate focus that I have ever seen. So that's what I really want you to do, if we're being totally honest here. The point of sensate focus is for the two of you to explore what it feels like to be the giver of touch and what it feels like to be the receiver of touch. And for our easy one, we're going to have a hunch that it's either easier for them to focus on doing mutual things or easier to focus on things that allow them to be the giver of pleasure. So what we're trying to do here is create opportunities for the easy one to be the receiver of touch, the receiver of pleasure. Well, carrying on from there, turning up the heat a little, the next one is to explore turn taking in the bedroom with giving and receiving manual stimulation and oral sex. As you know from other Reimagining Love episodes that we've done about sex, if you have an easy one in the relationship, and if that easy one also has a vulva, the chances are pretty darn high that they're going to be most uncomfortable with the sexual stuff that is going to be the most orgasm inducing for them, i.e., manual stimulation and oral sex, right? Those acts are centered on them and on their pleasure in a way that might feel really, really uncomfortable. But those are the very things that for people with vulvas are most likely to be orgasm producing. And so here again, I'm planting a seed, encouraging you to let yourself and your pleasure be centered. After a lifetime of saying, it's okay, or I'm good with whatever, I want you to have some practice feeling entitled to letting the focus be on you. All right, my last strategy here is to explore power exchange in the bedroom. You know, the whole realm of dominance and submission, it's huge. It's a huge topic. We could do literally a year's worth of episodes focused solely on the world of kink. So what I'm going to say here for the purposes of our episode today is that there can be tremendous healing in playing with power in the bedroom when we do it safely and lovingly and relationally. When you zoom out, you can see that kink is another variation on the themes we've been working on the theme of boss day, for example, right? Where somebody's in charge and somebody's following along. That's kind of the heart of kink. So I want to invite couples with an easy one to just even dip a little baby toe into the world of kink, into the world of playing with control and surrender as a way of stepping out of these long held patterns. But I want you to feel super duper supported if and as you do that. So I have linked a bunch of resources for you in the show notes, including some from my most trusted sexual resource teachers, like Pleasure Mechanics, like Dipsia, and like Vanessa and Xander Marin. And planting a seed that maybe we come back and talk about dominance, submission, power exchange, and kink in future episodes of our podcast. So I'm wrapping up for today, and I'm wrapping up with some mantras for the easy one. These are some phrases I want you to repeat to yourself whenever you need to. So even right now, if you want, you could just close your eyes, take a soft gaze, and let these mantras sort of wash over you. Ready? I get to take up space. My preferences matter, and expressing what I want strengthens my relationships. I can receive without guilt. Letting people be there for me makes them feel good too. Asking for what I need is a way that I take care of little me. I give myself what I need without questioning why I need it or whether it's valid. The opposite of easy isn't difficult. The opposite of easy is authentic. I seek out and cultivate relationships in which people are curious about my needs and my preferences. My hot takes are part of what makes me who I am, and they're part of what makes me interesting. Okay, as a reminder, if you want to take the roles quiz, you can find that in the show notes. We are back in the beginning of January with our exploration of the next two roles, the struggling one and the peacemaker. At the end of the series, there's going to be a worksheet with tailored journaling prompts and practices for all the roles. So if you want to receive that later on this winter, sign up for the newsletter. You can find a link in the show notes, or you can head to dralexandrasolomon.com/subscribe and join the list. Thank you so much for joining me today. And until next time, be well.
Do you have a relationship question that you want answered on the show? Visit reimagininglove.com to send in a written or audio question. Questions can be about intimate partnerships, family relationships, friendships, you name it. If you're looking for more love and relationship content, you can find me on Instagram at dr.alexandra.solomon or visit my website, dralexandrasolomon.com, where you'll find my blog as well as the Intimate Relationships 101 e-course based off of the popular class I teach at Northwestern University. Thank you for listening, and see you next week here on Reimagining Love.